Hey, good morning, guys. It's Purdeep Sangha here, the host of the Complete with Purdeep Show. Thanks for joining me today, especially since it's Thanksgiving. So I want to wish you, my American friends and family, a happy Thanksgiving. Hope you guys eat a ton and get a ton of rest here. So this show is for you if you are a gentleman who is an executive, a manager, any type of career professional, entrepreneur, business owner, and you're looking for more in life, because this show, as you heard, it's about being complete. It's about experiencing complete victory and having success in pretty much every area of your life. And we're here about real practical strategies and tactics. And we also talk about the stuff that you might be thinking, the stuff that you have in your head as a guy, but you don't really have a chance to share, whether it's with your buddies or with your spouse or with other people, whether that's the great things or some of the insecurities that you might have as well. So we're here as a total support for the guys out there that really want to achieve more in life. So if you could please do me a favor, if you can please hit the like and share button, because we're all about driving value. So if you can share this show with the people that you think would be of value, that would be great. This is, I believe, our 5th episode. And so we are just starting off. We're ready to get this thing rocking and rolling. And I'm super excited today because we're going to have an amazing guest come up here in a few minutes. But today's topic is really around one of the core C's of the 13 C's of becoming the complete man, and that is certainty. So what does it mean to have certainty? And it's a little bit different than confidence. Confidence is, you can say, that belief in your own ability, that you have the skills, the ability to actually get something done. But certainty is having the faith and belief that you'll actually achieve it. So it's the difference between saying, for example, if I'm an amazing basketball player, I might have confidence in myself, but I might not have the certainty that I'm going to win the championship. And there's a big difference there. And having certainty is important, because once you have certainty, then you're able to make more effective decisions as a man. You're able to get the things that you need to get done. And there's always a little part of us as men that have that voice on our shoulders that say, hey, you can't do it. Or maybe you don't have the skills, maybe you don't have the abilities, whatever that looks like. But it's important to come back to that certainty. This is why I'm not a huge religious person myself, but I believe in a lot of the teachings that different way you could say spiritual teachings or religious teachings have when it comes to certainty, because there's a lot of power in faith. There's enormous power when you have faith that you will be able to achieve and get what you want out of life, and you deserve it. I work with a lot of guys that are just starting off, guys that have a lot of money. And one of the core things that I see a lot of guys challenged with is the belief that they deserve it. The belief that they actually deserve to have an amazing lifestyle or an amazing relationship or whatever that might be. And I'm here to tell you that you absolutely deserve it. You absolutely should have everything that you want in life, because that's why you were put on this earth in the first place. So with that, before we jump into getting our guest on here in just a second, I want to give you the opportunity of getting a free copy, a digital copy of my book, The Complete Man. It's going to be launching December 1st. So we're going live next week. It's going to be basically out there to the public, but you can get a free digital copy today just by texting the word free to 888-210-5566. And sorry, let me just clarify that. Once you text that number, you will get a digital copy in the next couple of days prior to the release, but you can get on our list today by texting the word free to 888-210-5566. So let's bring out our guest here real soon. His name is Mr. Ardell Wright, otherwise known as AD. He's an awesome guy. I had a chance to chat with him prior to the show. Thanks for joining us here. So do you want me to call you Ardell or AD? What do you like?
Either one. It doesn't matter. It's all good, Purdeep. It's whatever comes off first, just stick with it.
Awesome, man. Yeah, thanks for joining us. And for those of you out there watching, Ardell he's got an interesting background, and he's going to share that with us. And I don't want to spoil it, because, he goes from basketball to military to being the CEO and founder of, Up South Collective, which is a lifestyle business that can help you with a number of different areas. And I'll let him kind of share that. But he's just a general, straight up cool guy. I get a great sense in terms of what he's about. And I want him to be able to share his story and value with us here today. So, AD, I like AD, so I'm going to call you AD, man.
That works.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from? You're a guy, you know, family wise, and I want to hear more about, you know, your basketball, your days in basketball, and your days in the military as well.
Got you. Well, first, thanks for having me, Purdeep. Super excited to be on with you guys today. Even though it's Thanksgiving, but it is what it is. I'd be up anyways.
Yeah, you made the time out, right?
Yeah. So, okay. So about me, I am born and raised in Gainesville, Florida. I recently moved back here. Let's see, 2 years ago, 2018. I spent the last 10 years in the tri-state area, New Jersey and New York. Growing up here, good old Southern kid, Floridian, the beach. I spent some time raised on a farm. We did grow up in the east side of town. So although we didn't have a lot, there was a lot of love surrounding me from neighbors and family, friends, and cousins and things of that nature. So I took a lot of that stuff with me growing up, and all of my brothers. I grew up with two younger brothers, and they were so heavily induced into football that it was life. So because we're brothers, I happen to just play, but I've always been one to kind of go against the grain. So I picked up basketball at a very early age and kind of just ran with it. And high school, I didn't have the illustrious high school career, that everyone has to have. My basketball career actually started once I graduated high school. I happened to get a good tryout with a community college in New Jersey, did fairly well. Then that's how I got recruited to go to a university, Fairleigh Dickinson University in New Jersey, to play basketball. And from there, it just took a turn. I was played in tournaments and leagues and meeting different people, playing in front of celebrities and the whole nine. So it kind of it just exploded out of nowhere, just out of sheer confidence, to be honest.
So I got
Um,
to ask you though. So
mhm.
what position do you play, or did you
I,
play?
Combo. So I would say early on I played shooting guard, but as I'm only 6'1", so as the competition got higher and the height got higher,
Yeah.
I made the switch to point guard, which I was pretty good in, to be honest. I didn't mind because I didn't mind sharing the ball, whatever the case may be. But yeah, so I would say combo guard. If I had to choose, I would say shooting guard because Allen Iverson is my favorite player, so he was the same.
Oh, interesting.
So it was the same kind of dynamic. So
So you like to show up to games, but not to practice then?
yeah, I hate practice. I'm not gonna lie. First of all, I don't know any. This might be a secret that I'm gonna relinquish. I don't know what athlete likes practice, but we all know we just need it, and you always practice more than you play. So, um, you know, I went to practice and tried to make games out of it to keep my mind there because you play so much basketball, and you're seeing these guys day in and day out, and you just have to find ways to keep yourself in tune in practice because sometimes you don't practice as hard because once you start playing games, you don't want to risk injury and fatigue and all of those things. So yeah, I do like to go to. I hate going to practice, but I do like the result from practice.
Well, I think that's an interesting point that you bring up there because
Mhm.
I don't think we as normal people, like average everyday citizens that don't go into pro sports or semi-pro sports, appreciate how much time you actually spend with your
Yes,
teammates, right? And how much
yes,
time you actually spend with your, away from your family and all that kind of stuff. But, you just said something that actually, it's like work. It's like you're there all
hmm
the time
yeah,
doing the same thing because you're practicing the same drills, you're doing it over and
hmm
over and over again. I can see where that gets a little bit tiring.
yeah. It gets redundant also because, like I said, it's when you're playing 3 games, when you get into the thick of the season and you're playing 3 games a week, it's only so much you can do at practice, with recovery time. So there's things you got to do and things you got to work on. And a lot of people don't understand. This is why I don't have the argument about, athletes in general when they just think the life is just so glamorous. There's blood, sweat, and tears that these guys and girls have put into their lives for, decades. Now I'm 31, so it would be 3 decades for me. If I was still playing to that level of, sacrifices, not going to proms, not going to cookouts, not going to family functions, missing Thanksgiving dinners. We watch football on Thanksgiving. We watch basketball on Christmas.
Hmm.
These athletes that travel the world and play their sport, they spend so much time with their team that becomes their family. So, I just when I hear the ignorance from someone who can be a casual fan, it's like it just kind of it rubs me the wrong way because I know what that's like. I know what that sacrifice is like to get to that level. And it just, I always tip my hat to athletes, uh, new or old, because I know that grind.
Awesome. And so, sorry, I cut you off there because you were
No, it's
talking
fine.
about basketball, but
Mhm.
you were also in the military.
Yeah, yeah. I right after I finished school, I went to the military. Um, Spent 6 years in the army, uh, which was it kind of was the same thing in a sense of my grind with playing basketball.
Hmm.
Um, the stakes were a lot higher, of course, but at the end of the day, you had your brothers and sisters in arms. You spend so much time with this family, excuse me, and you come to grow and learn and make so much sacrifice about you know, these ways of life as well in order to become the best at what you do, and always be ready to defend your family, your country, the guy or girl that's sitting next to you, right or left of you. And I have a soft place for vets as well because I've seen at the highest level the sacrifices that has had to be made, and to have to get out and figure it out. Now the military has implemented programs to help you transition from going to that lifestyle to being a civilian. And I think from what I've been reading, they've been working on healthcare plans for veterans. And like, I don't think we should have any homeless vets. There should not be a thing as a homeless veteran. I don't care what you did in the military. You could have swept the rug for all I care. That the purpose is you put on that uniform and you sacrificed a part of your life for the country. The country should sacrifice a part for you as well. So, um,
I want to jump in there because I totally
mhm,
agree with you. I think that's something that's super important. My grandfather was in the British Indian Army back. He's my father. Our grandfather's passed away long ago,
yeah,
but he spent a lot of time there, and I have an appreciation for veterans. I have the appreciation for the time that they put in and a sacrifice away from their family because my
mhm,
grandfather would come home for 2 months out of the year, and so my dad and his siblings pretty much grew up for a very long time without a full-time father, and that can be
yeah.
tough on a family. That is huge sacrifice. So this is a topic, I think. Why are veterans, do you believe, are they being left alone? Do you think that whether it's the, I don't want to say government because we always
Mhm.
pin the tail on the donkey and the donkey's the government, but why is that support not there, or why do we easily forget about veterans?
I think because people are by nature prisoners of the moment. So, for instance, whenever you see, someone in uniform, they might get their meal paid for, or, I've had guys offer me first class tickets, or, because they noticed that I was in the military or in transit from, base to base or whatever the case may be, or taking leave. But people are prisoners of the moment. So when Veterans Day, Memorial Day, those days come around, people pay their respects, but it's like, all right, that's for the moment. The next
Mhm.
day, what about the guy who, he happened to get that free meal that day? What about the next day? You know what I mean? So, Americans, we get so consumed in our lives that we take for granted a lot of, things outside of the moment.
Hmm.
Um, and when you see a veteran on the side of the street, maybe asking for money or for food or whatever the case may be, it's one of those things where it's just like, well, it may not benefit me in this moment. I've seen people kind of have to snap out of it, like, oh snap, we should do this for veterans. Oh, we should be this way. Or, but you gotta, you have to remind them. So I think it's one of those things that needs to constantly be, put in people's faces. It's no different than marketing. It needs to constantly be put out there to the public, like, hey, we need to do this every day. We need to do this. We need to do this. We need to do this. And eventually, enough people will, you know, make it a point every day to support it and to make the moves to make these things like happen. So that's what I think. I just think people are a prisoner of the moment and stuck within themselves as Americans, to be honest.
I think you're absolutely right on that one. And there's, uh, the topic of today's show is about certainty. And
Mhm.
what was it like? I'm assuming in the military, did you get deployed at all? Were you in,
Yeah, for a bit, yeah.
what was it like to, I'm assuming, and I don't know the training. I've worked with
Mhm.
some men in the military, but is there a level of uncertainty? And what does it feel like for someone? Because, we talk about uncertainty in regular day lives, right? And
Mhm.
we're not putting our lives on the line.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's a couple of times when I was uncertain. When you sign the papers, when you go through all your physicals and everything, we call them MEPS. You go to MEPS and you take all your physicals and you make sure your body's right and your mind is right. And then it's that moment where you get on the bus and you leave, like you're gone. And even excuse me, it didn't hit me really until I took the flight, met some more people in the military. That was, in transit as well, because they send a bunch of people at the same time. It wasn't until I got on one of like the actual type of military, like school bus kind of thing, where it was like, oh snap, this is really happening. Like I don't know what to expect. Now, I come from a militant family, so I had an aunt who was a big part of my life, who spent 30 years in the military. So I saw it close hand, but I didn't. I was too young when she first started, so I didn't know that experience. I just could go off of what she told me, and it was a level of like, overwhelmness. You felt this very overwhelming sense of what did I get myself into? Um, and then once, it's for me with life, I've always been a person to embrace. So anytime I felt overwhelmed, I just take a step back and embrace what's going on, the moment,
Mhm.
and realize that the moment is what it is. It's just a moment. So there was that time when I had to get off the bus and they do what's called the Shark Tank, and they're screaming at you and you're running every kind of which way. And that's kind of when I focused the most. And that's why I say basketball had a lot to do with it, because playing point guard or playing a guard position, you have to deal with a lot of chaos, a lot of traffic, a lot of screaming, a lot of, pandemonium that's going on around you. So it helped me kind of just hone in and focus. And I still had that level of uncertainty in that moment. And then there's the moment when you get orders to deploy. Um, if it's your first time, there's a level of uncertainty because you don't know what to expect. You're literally walking into the unknown.
Mhm.
And it's just, I make the comparison to sports because it's just like practice. You do all this training. The training is extensive. The training is hard. And I don't think people understand that part as well, because I've heard people say, oh, you only went through, basic training or whatever the case may be. But you got to understand that not everybody is born a soldier. So to take a person, a regular civilian, and turn them into someone who can defend your country at least at the lowest level is extremely difficult. I say being a drill sergeant is one of the hardest jobs in the world, because you're literally transforming a person in 2.5 months into something that is completely different than what they've known and what they have grown to expect. And that uncertainty is kind of what makes your fight or flight. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
I've always been a flight kind of person just by nature. So I can identify my times of uncertainty, and decide to fly and let the chips fall where they may, because everything, has a consequence, whether good or bad. So I'm prepared to ride for it all. So that moment when it comes, it's like, all right, I'm uncertain, but I'm here. There's no going back. So we might as well go through it. Got to go through it to get through it. So
That's pretty neat. I was watching Frozen 2 with my kids a while ago. They love that movie. I think I've probably seen it like, no exaggeration, probably like 20
yeah.
times. But there's one line in that movie that really just hit home for me. And I don't know if you can relate to this, but it was around when you don't know what the future holds, you just do the next right thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Yep.
was just like, wow, you know what? I just picked up this massive lesson from this kids movie, but it was just
Yeah.
so phenomenal, right? Just something simple like that for me just really struck home because yeah, it's you can only take it one step at a time. You can only do
Mm-hmm.
one thing at a time, and it's doing that next right thing that really helps you get through those tough times.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
really good points on there. So you're also a dad. You and I had a brief chance to talk about this, and we talked about some of the
Mm-hmm.
challenges that are happening with guys in COVID, especially right now. Thanksgiving, as you said, you can't really spend time with your family and or the
Yeah.
extended family, and you're in an interesting predicament because you have a 1-year-old,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yep.
what's her name?
Her name is A. Marie, my little human.
Avery. Your
Yeah.
little human. But she's not with you right now, right? And the plans aren't
Yeah.
going according.
Yeah. Yeah. So, my daughter and her mother are in Jersey. They live in New Jersey, and I'm down here in Florida. So, the pandemic caused a interesting dynamic because, um, I mean, even if her like her if even if I wanted to find a job up there or her mother find a job down here, it would be hard given the circumstance of how everything is gone. And her mother is stressed that she, would like to actually eventually get moved to Florida. Um,
So is she a
and
Jersey girl?
yes, yeah,
Okay.
yep.
I won't go there.
Don't remind me. Um, no, she's every bit of a Jersey girl, but we actually, we're best friends. And then we're good co-parents, and it's a little. I'm not much of a stressing person because it doesn't really help the situation.
You seem like a
But
pretty chill guy, man. You seem,
yeah, yeah,
and that's
I try
why
to
that's
just.
why I find it funny that you were not funny, but in the military because
Mhm.
I just you have this chill personality, and I'm like, you know what, seeing you kind of convert into that side would be interesting.
Yeah, well, see, the difference is, one, that was one of my nicknames, Mr. Cool, in the military. And the more things got heightened, the cooler I became. But there's a level of aggression, that comes out with me in competition.
Hmm.
So although it's smooth, although it may be cool, it's still like, I can take it to that level, and still be myself. It's just a different part of me. It's just a, a switch that flips. Same thing
Yeah,
in basketball. I'm like this majority of the time, but when it's time to play and I get competitive, then it's a different side. It's no different in
game
business
on.
too. It's no different in business. So, um, yeah.
And I
So
want to ask
because I'm
you,
not.
I want to
Mhm,
ask you about that too, because you talk about, with your ex and you guys have you two have a good relationship. I
mhm,
think that's important, right? Because a lot of times when people break up, and again, the show is about just being real, right? Being open
yep,
and honest, and some
yep,
of the challenges that we face is when couples break up, man, they're just like cats and dogs. They're going at it, and the
yeah,
kids are
yeah.
impacted. So how did you keep that relationship? You can say, I'm going to say positive,
Yeah.
um, going forward? Like, was there a time where you just basically
Um,
said, we got to do this for her, or what was that like?
yeah, well, we've first thing that helps is that we were best friends before all of this. So for like the last 11 years, we were close. We were best friends. So that goes into it. And as a man, I heard Will Smith say something. He said, I can only father as much as you allow me to as a mother. So once I got the news that she was pregnant, and because we weren't, technically together when she got pregnant. I mean, we were in a good space. We were never butting heads. But when she gave me the news that she was pregnant, we had a little tiff at the beginning, and then once I was able to process everything and get my composure, um, I just relinquished everything. You know what I mean? I kind of took my ego, took my pride out, because it's not about me anymore. You know what I mean? And I'm not even pregnant, so I
Yeah.
I don't I will never know what that's like. So I, as a man, just had to let go of any ego I had, any pride I had. I'm a Taurus by nature, so I can be stubborn. Any stubbornness I just relinquished it all and gave the floor to her, and whatever she needed me to do, given the circumstance, I was more than willing and able to do, um, even to this day. So I just remove my ego from it, and it helps a lot of the situation because uh, I just go from, you know, we have conversations all the time, and I have to explain to her like, hey, I don't think you understand that as a man, I don't know what it's like to carry a child. So I don't bear that same emotion that you bear to our daughter. So certain motherly nature things that you can pick up on, I can't. So it's okay to teach me these things. It's okay
Mhm.
to show me these things. You can lead me in this direction. I'm gonna make sure we're taken care of, but you gotta, if she, I don't know the difference. I didn't know the difference between I'm hungry cry or I'm sleepy cry. Like you do, because you spent 9 months with this child.
Yeah.
So it's okay to teach me these things. And I think once we had that conversation, she kind of realized like I wasn't trying to be overbearing. I was just trying to be there and be in the thick of things and let her know that, it's okay to teach me. And I think the military and playing basketball allowed me to kind of shape my mind this way because it helps me in business as well. So in going to the military, one of the things my aunt was telling me, who was a drill sergeant, was don't pay attention to how they're telling what they're, how they're yelling at you. Pay attention to what they're saying. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So I went into that. Same thing with playing college. When you play in a high level, coaches screaming and all this stuff. I've always learned to pay attention to what they're saying and not so much as how they're saying it, because in that moment they have to say it to you this way in order
Hmm.
for you to get it. So then I kind of, and it goes with self-awareness as well. So I know me, because I can take it to a high level of competition. Once I realize your tone is a certain way, I naturally are, tune in to what you're saying, because my feelings are not involved, my ego are not involved. I understand you are here to do a job. So, and it's the same thing with my child's mother. So she's great. Like I couldn't ask for a better mother for my daughter. And I just tell her, like, hey, if I don't know something, it's okay for me not to know something. We're both first time parents. You're just going to have the edge because you are the person that actually physically gave birth to our daughter. So it's okay to show me the ropes, and then I'll pick it up from there.
I think you mentioned a number of important facts here because a lot of guys that are watching this might be wondering, well, what does this have to do with business? Because the show is for guys that are associated with business, but it has everything to
Hmm.
do with business because as
Yes, it does.
guys, how often are we sitting there working and then because why are we working so hard? It's because we're there to provide a life for them. And so this
Exactly.
is totally relevant. And sometimes we might work late in the evening or on the weekends and feel that guilt that, hey, look, I'm not spending that time with my kids or with my
Hmm.
spouse, whatever that looks like. So there is no line anymore between work and family. It is
Hmm.
all one thing. How you perform in your personal life has a big impact on how you perform in business. It's just the way we're built. Our brain doesn't shut off and say, okay, work and personal life is separate. It works together. There's a couple of other things. You said it's okay to be or to not have the knowledge. And again, as guys, we want to know stuff. We want to know everything.
Yes.
We want to go in there
Yeah.
being like the professionals and the competent ones. And I just
Hmm.
like how you said that because it's okay sometimes we just don't know. And especially as you have a new kid, there's a lot of stuff you don't know. And I like how you positioned it, where it's allowing your spouse, or allowing in this case, the mother of your child, to teach you as a man, right? And that is sometimes putting your ego to the side and saying, okay, you know what? She knows a lot more about this than I do. Let me learn from her. And there's one massive point that I think is really important that you talked about. And I know some women watch this show, because I've gotten some great feedback. So, but this is both for men and women, is the importance of what you talked about in Will Smith's comments, or his quote. It is absolutely true, and studies prove this, that women are the ones that determine how much access and what that access looks like to their children. They are the gateway. And so it's important, if you're out there listening, as a woman or even as a man, that you understand this, right? Men are there to support their kids, their families. And sometimes, and I've seen this, a lot of women, and this is natural, to get to the guy, they'll use their kids and they'll restrict the access, or whatever that looks like. But that is just harming the child. That is just harming the family more than anything. So some really important points that you had there, AD. So you're in the military. Now you're a radio guy, right? You're radio.
Yes.
You have a podcast. I love
Yeah.
your shirt. The whole ADHD thing.
Yeah.
So tell me what you're doing right now. What's your podcast about? What's your radio show about?
Okay, so the radio, I am on 98.9 Jams here in Gainesville, noon to 6, Monday through Friday. So that's that. The radio show is just we play classic hip hop and R&B. So I play, music from the 70s, 80s, 90s, early 2000s. I'll sneak a 2010s song in there every once in a while, but the vibe of it is just, good times, taking you back to that time when you were in high school or middle school or growing up. My generation and a couple generations before me. So I think it's very cool, because I'm well versed in that kind of music. That's the kind of music that I listen to often anyways, being raised by my grandmother. So it fits right into, my lifestyle. And the podcast, the ADHD show, it started as a vlog initially, but I didn't realize how hard vlogging was when I first started. This is when I first started up south and everything. So
yeah,
vlogging, it was okay. But what I realized is that at the time, I tried to do it during the winter, and I wasn't doing enough things. This is when I started up south. So a lot of it was just the grind of me working from home.
yeah.
And my heart wasn't in the vlogging thing. And if my heart's not into something, I'm not really going to do it, because it really makes no sense. So I kind of just tabled the name, the ADHD show, for a while. And when I moved back to Gainesville, I started it. And I started with some other co-hosts, and that didn't work out because, scheduling, and they had their own thing going. And I asked one of my friends from high school to do it. And so we started doing it. And then another friend came as a guest who was an artist. And then he was like, hey, I was one of my guys was like, you should ask him if he wants to do it every time, because we spent the whole podcast laughing about high school days. So I asked him, he was down. One more friend moved back from Memphis. He came to kick it just to visit a couple times. Before you know it, he's grabbing the mic and giving opinions. And then we got him a mic. Then had we got a sound engineer who helped. And before I knew it, they're bringing me shirts like, hey, we got I had the logo made. And then it just one of those things that happened organically. And I'm a huge person when it comes to naturalness and organic, and the things that happen organically. And this happened organically. And once I noticed that, I ran with it.
Yeah, and again, man, a lot of the stuff that you're saying is just hitting home. The organic piece. There's just that natural fit. It gives you that confidence, but also, and I don't know if you have a faith background, but it's just some things are just meant to be. They just fall into place. And I think if we look out for those signs, it can make a real difference in people's lives, because I think so many of us get so busy in our everyday lives that we forget about signs. Even if they're glaring and they're right in front of us, smacking us
Hmm.
across the face, we just don't pay attention to them. So now you got the show with your buddies. You guys are kicking it off.
Yeah.
Um, so that's cool. And so what's your business about? Can you tell us about that? What are you doing? How are you helping people?
All right. So Up South Collective is it started as Up South Media, which we were talking about before, because I wanted to get into the media realm of things. I wanted to get into um, you know, I came from, everybody that's to me, I think everybody that's in the entertainment world or works around music wanted to do music at first. So that's how I started as a kid, as a teenager or whatever. And I was growing up and I was realizing that there were not a lot of platforms back in 2008, 2009 for artists to come on and talk and get interviews. And so I started noticing that there was a gateway from um, you know, art to consumer, and a lot of that was media. You know what I mean? So I just kind of I got to this thing where I saw, okay, I just sat down and I remember looking around, and I was in a studio once, and everybody was a rapper. Everybody was rapping, and I just looked around and was like, everybody's rapping, but nobody's like nobody has the camera, nobody has the microphone to interview. Like, so what if I got into something that was that? You know what I mean? So
You
there's a
saw the
lot of
need.
these guys. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
it
you
was
saw
one
the
of those.
need, right? Which is all about business. That's what business
Hmm.
is. If you see the need, you jump on it.
Yeah, and I wasn't aware enough to know that it was a business at first. So I was just doing podcasting and interviews. And my uncle, who had a media company before, who was the business part of the media company, was like when and I started this in Jersey, and he pulled me to the side and was like, this is like a business model, right? And I was like, huh? Business model. I didn't know business model. I didn't know business plan. I didn't know nothing. I knew about business because that's what he was involved in. And he was just like, yeah, you have a business model here. And then he sat me down and he showed me, the Viacoms of the world and what he did. And I did some interning for him. And it kind of just spun into this thing about podcasting. I had an iPhone and I happened to hit the podcast button on the old iPhone and was like, I listened to one and I was like, what the, like my mind was blown. And I did research. I did research for like 2 years on it before I did anything. Um, and it just developed into all of this. So when I moved back here, the first thing I kept hearing was, there's nothing for us to do in Gainesville. There's nothing for us to do. There's only stuff for the college kids or for super old people. There's nothing in between. So then I sat down and I started putting these events together. And this is where the collective part comes in. I started putting these events together. And I think the first one I did was a New Year's Eve party. The first one was 2 years ago. And a lot of people came out. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. So to answer your question, Up South is one of the thing that I've done where it just involves the collection of people and the collect. That's why I happen to sit and talk with a friend of mine, Aaron, about the collective part, because he's like, bro, what you do is you're bringing a lot of people together, and we don't have that here. We don't have a lot of you know camaraderie. We don't have a lot of things that we can come to and just, as we like to say, vibe and have a good time and have a drink or two and listen to some good music and, just let our guards down. And it's rough out here being a entrepreneur and a professional alike. So up south, we do a great job of bringing the community together, a community of young professionals, old professionals, people who want to experience something different. So I think I do a good job of bringing a big city lifestyle to my events and showing people that may not have had the opportunity to live abroad to see a high class event, you know what I mean, and
Hmm.
have a good time, be able to put on your best outfit and just feel like everybody wants to feel like money, I always say.
Yeah.
And I think I do a good job of giving that aspect to our events.
So, what is your? And I'm gonna dig deep here. What's your
Mhm.
What's one of your big business challenges right now that you're facing?
Well, doing events with the collection of people, given a pandemic, I haven't had a chance to do anything because I've been just a little too apprehensive with it. Um, that's been one of my biggest things. That's something I definitely would need some kind of coaching on because I'm not a virtual person. You know what I mean? I'm a people person. So not being able to gather people for a good cause has been one of the things that has been affecting my business as a whole because since March I had you have your layout for the year of everything you want to do to December 31st, which is now it's an annual New Year's Eve party.
Hmm.
And I haven't been able to do anything because you know, the pandemic has really slowed people down with quarantining and the lockdown. And I invested into an event space. So that's just kind of been sitting and waiting to, be utilized in its fullest capacity.
Yeah, that's interesting, and I think I've seen a lot of this happen. We did a lot of in-person workshops for the work that we did. So we would hold workshops specifically for guys,
Hmm.
and at that time there's no social distancing, and we made a conscious decision. We made a conscious decision to say, how do we reinvent our business model, not necessarily just for COVID, but to see the trends
Hmm.
in society. And we're seeing that. And I think it's one of those things where it's adapt, or unfortunately, it's move on to something else.
Yep. Yeah.
And the virtual space is becoming better and better and better, but it's never going to replace the in person. So
Yeah.
that's why I always say, there's always a two prong approach. You can still keep the in person and make it minimal, but also include the virtual side. The good thing is that there's a lot more technology, because before it was just Zoom, right?
Hmm.
Zoom owned,
Yeah.
they own the platform, but every day now, literally every day, I'm seeing a new platform come out, which is a positive. And these new platforms have some real cool functionality to make it more interactive, to be able to take your business online. I truly, and from the research that my team has done, I think a lot of these events will eventually come back,
Hmm.
but there's going to be a large virtual component. So my suggestion would be to get on that virtual side as soon as possible, build that space. And it's the difference between, maybe you don't do your most intimate stuff virtually, but you do something. So at least you have some space, right? You got to
Yeah.
have your foot in the game, and then find what that right mix in is, because at some point society will normalize. But you can't stay idle. You got to keep that brand going. You got to keep that marketing going. That's going to be the most important thing. We took the approach from a business side, and I personally, because my team is still working and doing stuff, but I took
Hmm.
this year off to write my book, and I said, now this is my opportunity, because I always wanted to write this specific book,
Hmm.
and I said, this is the opportunity to keep the brand going. This is the opportunity to keep the business model going, but just a different perspective. And I think that's going
Yeah.
to be important for you, to do that. And you know what? Explore. And I think the big thing
Hmm.
here, AD, is what I'm seeing is if you wait too long, you're going to fall behind the game, right? Because there's other people that are just jumping on the online
Yeah.
space. Um, Now, I'm also interested in your family stuff, because you talked about your daughter. They were supposed to move down.
Hmm.
What's your plan for that now? Are you gonna, is there some kind of plan for you guys to make that work? Are you holding off, or because I feel
Yeah.
for you as a
We're.
dad,
Mhm.
man, as a dad, and here's why. When my son was born, my wife got an amazing opportunity for work,
Mhm.
but her work was about an hour away, and we had a newborn. We didn't have any real family in the area. My family's on the other side of the country. Her
Okay.
mom just happened to live like right across the street from where she got this job.
Wow. Okay.
So it was just like, and the job was only 3 days a week. She was working 3 12-hour shifts. So we made the conscious choice to say, okay,
Mm.
you go spend that time, those 3 or 4 days with your mom, and I'll suck it up as a guy away from my, from YouTube, my son and
Yeah.
my wife
Yeah.
at that time, for the better of the family and the better of her career. We did that for about a year and a half, man. It was the toughest year and a half for me because I wanted to be there with my son.
Mhm.
I can only imagine what you're going through.
Yeah, it's extremely difficult because at first, I had just started in actual media, my actual media career when she got pregnant. So I was okay with flying back and forth, because I had to fly anyways. But now it's a little different. We're kind of going to, figuring it out as we go. I do know that we are out of ratings for radio this week, next week. So after that, I'm out. I'm going to hang out. So I have family, like I was telling you earlier, I have family in Jersey. So I do have places to stay. I have my closest friends who I played basketball with live in Jersey. So I had places to go and places to stay and to camp out for a week or two. And when I'm there, everybody knows I'm just balls to the wall with my kid. And now she's walking and running around. So we will be, from sun up to sundown doing our thing. But it's one of those things where I just keep in mind that it's temporary. Um, and eventually, things will pan out to how they're supposed to. But in the meantime, we're just preparing for whatever direction it goes. Like if this pandemic stretches longer, even longer than what it has, then being that it's just me that's traveling, I'll look to do more of it, which is not a problem at all. And as time goes on and as she gets, more into her career and starts looking for different locations and something that's, that helps too is that she has a good support system, like in her house, in Jersey. So they're not being, exposed to anything else because they're all together. They're not seeing anybody else. They have their
Yeah.
own kind of bubble thing going on. So she has that. So I can't pull her away from that yet because although I have a support system here, we're still spread out. So there's still that slim possibility of us talking to somebody or coming into contact with somebody who has, COVID or anything like that. So right now we're just, taking it day by day, and trying to figure out where the country is going, or really the world as a whole, with this whole pandemic. And once we can get back to some normalcy, then we'll be able to better gauge what we can do. But as of now, it's just FaceTimes and Snapchats and pictures and the whole nine. So as soon as we get off, I'm gonna FaceTime them and tell them Happy Thanksgiving and talk to them and all that stuff. I talk to them every morning.
Yeah, we won't keep you too much longer, but I think that's such an important point because you're not the only guy out there that's facing this.
Hmm.
There are literally millions of people out there, millions of guys that are feeling down and out. I talk to guys every day in terms of, there's a lot of challenges prior to COVID coming along, and then now
Hmm.
this is just adding to it. And you're just a perfect testament in terms of this. You just got to hang in there. You got to stay
Hmm.
cool. You got to keep on course, doing things that you need to do. Because we will get through this. We will get through
Yeah.
this stronger.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of timing. And
Yep.
we just need time to catch up. But if you just keep taking it, going back to Frozen 2, right? That next right thing, you'll eventually get there. So AD, I want to thank you for coming on the show, man. You're an awesome guy. Literally, just hanging with you for this last 45 minutes has been a blast. I enjoyed the feedback, the value that you put in. Thank you so much. I hope you have an amazing Thanksgiving. Um,
Thank you.
and we'll have you back on the show because I want to know, I want to know more about your journey here. So thank
Yeah,
you.
definitely. Definitely. Thank you for having me on, Purdeep. I appreciate it so much. Hey, I didn't even notice it was 45 minutes. But yeah, anytime, man, anytime. And hopefully one day we'll be able to do this in person. I would like to come up there where you are and hang
Yeah,
out and see what
bring
it's
your
like.
parka, man. Bring your parka and come up to Canada.
No, I would. It'd be a cool looking parking, so I definitely come.
Awesome, man. Thank you.
No problem at all. No problem at all.
Take care.
You too.
So there you go. We had an awesome guest. We had AD on. This guy's got an interesting background, from basketball to military to, the challenges he's facing right now with having his daughter live on the other side of the country. Excuse me. Man, these are just, these are the typical things that a lot of us guys are facing right now. And you can just see the one thing I appreciate most about AD coming on the show is you can just sense his coolness, right? He is calm, he's collected. And even though there is that level of uncertainty with what's happening with COVID and everything else, his business, for example, you can see that he's got certainty within himself. And I think that's the most important thing that you can take away from today's episode is that when times are tough, when there's a hurricane out there, man, if you stay calm within, you're going to be able to make it. I got to drink some water here. But I thank you for staying with us throughout this show, talking about certainty. And, I really appreciate it. Again, this show is really about value. It's about you guys being able to go out there, live the lives that you deserve to live. And so one last time, I want to give you the opportunity to get a copy of my book before it's officially launched. Text the word free to 888-210-5566. Thank you so much. I hope you have an amazing Thanksgiving, and we'll see you next week at Thursday, 8 a.m. Eastern Time. Take care.